Hello and welcome to iBuzz. I'm your host Nasheen Bukhari, bringing you the most exciting and latest news from entertainment world. In today's episode, we will pay a tribute to the action hero Arnold Schwarzenegger on his 74th birthday, followed by a movie review on Ludo. But first things first, let me quickly take you to the top stories of the day. Will rapper DaBaby react to Dua Lipa's remarks about him? The film industry pays tribute to Arnold Schwarzenegger on his 74th birthday. Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall to leave Doctor Who in 2022. X Factor, ITV has no plans for another series of the show. And Eminem to host Detroit Day. And now moving to our top story of the day. Arnold Schwarzenegger is an Austrian-American actor, producer, businessman, retired bodybuilder, and former politician who served as the 38th governor of California from 2003 to 2011. Today, on his 74th birthday, we will pay him a tribute with film journalist Alice Oliver. Alice, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Lovely to be here.
So Alice, from a professional bodybuilder to a Hollywood action hero, how do you define Arnold as an actor?
Goodness me, I mean, just possibly one of the hardest working people in Hollywood for sure. Mm-hmm. And we know obviously that he embodies that action hero. You know, he's got such an incredible presence physically, obviously because of his bodybuilding history, his incredible height. And he just embodies, for a lot of people growing up in the 80s and 90s especially, he is the action hero that we remember. So when you think about films like Terminator, like Predator, it was almost like he was bringing something that you just hadn't seen before. And because of his really thick Austrian accent, that really added something extra to it. Like, this wasn't just your typical kind of American hero you were seeing. It was just something a bit different. And like you say, going from like businessman, actor to politician, I mean, he's just done it all. He's had such a broad, varied career. And he's just such a remarkable man, really. When you kind of look at his life and look at everything that he's been through and everything that he's done, just a really remarkable man. And I was really surprised that he was 74. I was like, he still looks fantastic.
Yeah, and I would really like you to comment, Alice, on Terminator, a franchise that was one of the best gifts given to the movie industry by Arnold. The name Terminator is utterly attached with his name, and you cannot imagine a Terminator without Arnold.
Oh, absolutely. So the Terminator franchise, for me, is one of the greatest film franchises of all time. Terminator 2 is the best film of all time, in my opinion. And he was just brilliantly menacing in that. When you think about the first Terminator, obviously, where he is playing the bad guy, and James Cameron wasn't even sure if he wanted to cast him at first. He wanted someone who was a bit more normal looking, who wouldn't stand out in a crowd. So obviously Arnie, because of his height, because of his size, he does stand out in a crowd. But when he met him and he auditioned for the role, he thought, oh no, actually, he is bringing something so powerful to this. Like, he is this menacing, kind of formidable robot from the future. And the whole thing just kind of worked so brilliantly. And there are so many iconic moments from the Terminator franchises, sort of from the like the one-liners, you know, like the "I'll be back" and "Come with me if you want to live," to things like his outfits, to just it's a franchise that's really kind of stood the test of time. Like, I think Terminator 2 was one of the most successful films of the 90s.
Right.
And sorry, go ahead.
Yes, please go ahead.
He was just such a key part in making it the success that it was, I think. And I think if James Cameron had gone down the other route of kind of making the Terminator, of making this robot a bit more of like an everyman, I don't think it would have had the same impact, because the whole thing, and then in Terminator 2, obviously, where he comes back as the good guy who's here to kind of be the hero and help John Connor. It takes a while to kind of get your brain around that, because it's like, oh no, we've just seen him, trying to murder Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor, and then to come back. And it just shows a great range from him as well, to be able to move between those two very different characters within the same franchise.
Yes, and the movie seemed to be way ahead of its time with regards to the CGI, the story, the acting, the performance. I mean, in every single manner, it was way ahead of its time.
I completely agree, and it hasn't aged poorly at all. Like, if you look at other action films from that time, or sort of sci-fi films from that time, because CGI was it was just finding its feet. And when you think about the quality of CGI from back then to what it is now, it's, it's a completely different thing. It's a completely different viewing experience. But with Terminator 2, it just didn't age at all. Like, it still looks as good, I think, as it could. And even if you remade it today, I don't think you could top, what they did back then. I suppose because it's a great mix between these actual real stunts and the CGI. It just works so well. And I think it is one of those films that is just going to go down in history as one of the greatest ever. And for me, that is James Cameron's height right there. Like, that is the best thing that he's ever made.
Alice, how would you comment on Arnold as a comedian, since he has also done a lot of comedy movies like Twins, Junior, and Kindergarten Cop? So how did you see him as a comedian? Because previously he was always known as an action hero, but in the middle of his career, he turned his attention towards being a comedian as well. So how would you define him as a comedy actor?
It's interesting because I think if you pitched that to someone, say if you're in like the boardroom or whatever, and you're thinking, who are we going to get to play, the lead in this comedy film? It's like, how about Arnold Schwarzenegger? You'd be like, oh, might raise a few eyebrows. But it works really, really well. I think because of the way he delivers, like, it just wouldn't be your first choice at all, ever. But he's got like this undercurrent of seriousness every time that he is sort of doing a comedy bit. Like, when you think about things like Kindergarten Cop, I think because he isn't the butt of the joke there. The joke is that he's this huge policeman who's going to try and go undercover and be really subtle in this school sort of situation. But he's not subtle. Like, he's not a subtle man. Like, he's not a subtle figure at all. He does stand out because of his size, because of the way he just dominates a room when he walks into it. But it all just really works, and it matches together really well. And I think a lot of that is probably to do, like, with the writing and the teams that he had around him, but also just his commitment to the roles. Like, he's always working so hard. I don't think you could ever fault him on that at all. But no, I really enjoy his comedy performances. But I do sort of associate him as more of an action hero, as I'm sure most people do. But I would, I'd be happily to watch an Arnie comedy any day.
Right. Alice, moving to politics was one of his life's toughest decisions, and he faced a lot of criticism for choosing politics as a career. But once again, we saw him conquering and becoming the governor of California for the longest period. Do you think, being an actor, it is wise of these Hollywood actors to choose politics as a career?
It's a tricky one, and they're always going to face this kind of backlash of, oh, well, what do you know? You're just an actor. But the fact is, he's had a very real life, with very real struggles. He isn't someone who's just been, like, born into money and born into privilege, and so doesn't really understand the struggles of normal working people. He knows that. Just because he's a Hollywood actor doesn't diminish his own life experience. And it would be difficult, I think, to go through the struggles that he did without having an interest in politics. Like, when he was born, they were just in Austria, they were coming off the back of World War II. You would just inherently be interested in well, how did this happen? Why did this happen? And then his ex-wife was, I believe, the niece of JFK.
Yes.
So there was a connection there as well. And I imagine he heard loads of stories and really got to know the world of politics a lot. And the impression I get is that he loves California. Like, he sees that as that was where his life could really begin. It was almost as if he knew when he got there, then he'd made it. So it makes sense from my point of view that then he would want to make that a better place. And the fact that he was re-elected as a foreign man as well, I think it really says a lot. And I think it says a lot about the people of California as well, that they were so happy to welcome him. But I don't think there should be, just because you are an actor, just because, you've done any job previously, I don't think that should mean you shouldn't be allowed to be a politician. We look at these kind of career politicians or people that have been doing it forever, and they're not necessarily good people. They don't necessarily want what's best. Right. But with him, like, it was obviously not about the money, because he was already so wealthy, and it probably wasn't even about kind of the fame. It was just, I always just got the impression that it was about actually trying to make a difference.
Right. With wishing him a very happy birthday, I'm going to have to thank you, Alice. Thank you very much indeed for being with us.
Thank you so much.
That was Alice Oliver paying a tribute to the birthday boy, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And now moving to other story details of the day. Dua Lipa fans want her not to work with DaBaby anymore after the rapper was recorded making controversial remarks about HIV patients. The incident came after Dua's song Levitating featuring DaBaby has broken several records. The British singer reacted strongly after coming across the rapper's comments. She took to Instagram and wrote, she was shocked and horrified by the rapper's remarks. After reading the singer's reaction, DaBaby's fans are convinced that the rapper would hit back at Dua Lipa and may diss the British singer in one of his future tracks. Jodie Whittaker is to step down from the lead role in Doctor Who. The first woman to play the Time Lord will bow out in autumn 2022, along with showrunner Chris Chibnall. Whittaker will star in a new 6-part series later this year and 3 specials next year before she exits. In a statement, Whittaker paid tribute to Chibnall and the Doctor Who team, adding, I will carry the Doctor and the lessons I have learned forever. It has not been yet announced who will take over from Whittaker in the leading role. ITV has confirmed they have no plans for another series of The X Factor. The last full series of Simon Cowell's pop music TV talent show aired in 2018, although a celebrity edition was broadcast the following year. The X Factor was one of the most popular TV shows in the UK. However, rating has fallen in recent years. An ITV spokesman told that there are no current plans for the next series of X Factor at this stage. Eminem left millions of his fans excited when he took to Instagram on Wednesday to announce that he would co-host a radio show to honor Detroit hip-hop. The rapper, also known as Slim Shady, announced that he will be joined by several other artists on the show. The Lose Yourself rapper will host the Detroit Day on Rock the Bells radio. That is it from our newsroom. We will be right back after a quick short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. It's review time, and we will be reviewing the 2020 comedy drama Ludo. 4 seemingly different stories intertwine in a game of fate and chance that includes a scandalous tape, a suitcase full of money, and unsettled scores. To review the movie, we are joined by one of our favorite film critics, Mayank Shekhar. Mayank, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Nosheen. Great to see you.
So, Mayank, with a spellbound script, crisp editing, and with spectacular performances, how would you comment on this laughing package?
Well, it's an absolute riot, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And just goes on for only about 2 hours and some, but packs in so much in terms of multiple storylines, multiple characters, and all these stories somehow merging into one and then going back and de-merging into others. It's like the 4 quadrants of a Ludo board, which is the basic idea. And as you said, I would call it a suspense thriller, really, but made like a proper Bollywood musical with every accoutrement in it that you would want to see in a film. So there's so many things going on that the screen splits into 4 every few minutes. That's something that you usually see in the interval of a movie, but you see it constantly happening because you want to know who is where, which character is doing what, and which part of the storyline are they at. And then it just all merges into an amazingly fun film.
Right. And Mayank, it is really amazing how Anurag Basu, with his editor, has made a sleek, editing the story so gripping without any loose ends.
Absolutely. I think, I remember watching this film back to back, in fact, in 2020. And of course, these were the early days of lockdown. We had all the
Yes.
time in the world to watch the same film again. And also to understand how well the script was crafted and how actually everything falls into its place, like the pieces of a Ludo board again.
Yes.
And some of the fun also is derived from how beautifully the film is mounted in the sense of its colors, its light, its shadows, its production design, its location. I think
Yeah.
by and large, if you were to call Anurag Basu, his basic talent is actually as an aesthete. He's aesthetically a fantastic filmmaker, and that we've also noticed in films that were not so great in terms of what those subjects were, like his early films like Murder, which was like a really a B-grade movie, but even there you can observe that it's aesthetically very sound. And of course he's done films like Kites and Jaga Jasoos. He's dealt with various genres, but this one, I think, in terms of a screenplay, is his most accomplished work.
Right. And talking about the music, Anurag Basu used the song many times in Ludo. I mean, this is the song that it goes on repeat to underline how fate can be so cruel. So music is also something that, makes this movie stand out.
Absolutely. I think that one particular old number from 1951 film and keeps playing Oh Babuji, you know what I mean? And it's not a very popular song. So, people like me would have to Google and then play it again and sort of fall in love with the song. He's almost revived that particular
and I also
track,
heard this song for the very first time in my life, just the way you said it.
Right,
it was not very popular, but the movie made it popular.
Exactly. And, it goes so well with the theme of the movie and also even the writing, in fact, the dialogue, some of the things they say about love, some of the things they say about life, it just fits in so well. So it's not just a harebrained thriller. It's not just that you're following a particular plot in terms of who did what. You're also, in all that madness, you also have time to ruminate, to think about things that the movie is trying to say, which I think is marvelous.
Absolutely. And this movie worked as a gift during the pandemic season where half of the world was, going through lockdowns. So it received a remarkable number of viewership, and the viewers did not feel disappointed in this comedy movie. I mean, the genre was, it actually did justice to the comedy genre.
Absolutely. I think if you just take, take Bollywood as a pastiche genre where you have everything from comedy to action to thriller to romance. It just packs all of it into a very compact film at the same time. There are no parts in the movie where you are likely to get bored. You want to stay within this really colorful world that's been created. And of course, like the 4 quadrants, all of them had different colors too.
Yes.
Literally had different colors in terms of the way they're shot. Nobody knew lockdown was going to happen. All the stuff that we began to watch were obviously stuff that had been made towards the end of, towards 2019. And you saw a lot of dark subjects around that time, you know what I mean? And some of the great stuff that we saw, like, say, even shows like Fatah Look and all, they're extremely dark subjects. And already when the world around you is so dark, we were really looking for something as light and fun as Ludo. And as you rightly said, Nosheen, it really came at the right time. We needed this film.
Absolutely. In the last couple of years, Mayank, not so very great comedies have been released within Bollywood. And so Ludo, hands down, seems to be one of the greatest comedy movies. This is by some of the critics, which I would like you to comment on. I mean, do you agree with the fact that it came out at the right time? We all agree with that. But did it make to the top 10 great movies, comedy movies in the past couple of years?
It would technically, of course, except that it may not qualify purely as comedy because it's just so many storylines plus genres mixed into one. But I do see your point about how there haven't been too many great comedies the past few years. And I think some of it may have to do with the fact that no matter what film everyone makes, they tend to put a very heavy subject along with it. So you see a lot of comedies, but they'll really be addressing some bigger issues. And that bigger issue could be, Right to Education Act, it could be surrogacy, it could be, all kinds of, social taboos. So they try to mix it up with something which is a very strong social message. We haven't seen an absurdist humor, you know, like a pure out and out crazy comedy when there is really no message to it except for some great lines and some amazing characters. I think Rajkumar Rao's portion in Ludo is precisely that, and to a huge extent, Pankaj Tripathi's portions in Ludo is also precisely that. Here's a Don, you can't take him that seriously. And here is a love-struck Romeo, you know, in love with this girl back from school who you can't take seriously too. Of course, you love them, but you love them for no other reason, but because they're there, they're so adorable. So in that sense, you know, that innocence of comedy has been missing for a while. And I think these two characters in particular, thanks to Anurag Basu, who's not just directed this film, but has also participated in the writing of it, has also acted in the movie as a narrator. If you see right at the beginning, he's also shot the film. He's also the cameraman of the film. I think he has that quirkiness of touch, something that we saw back in the day with films that Kishore Kumar used to act in back in the in the black and white era. He has that same quirkiness about you know, at least through this film that he's managed to express to a point where I would agree with you, it's definitely the top 3 films of 2020, at least so far as Bollywood is concerned.
Right, and Mayank, there is another absolute wonder that this movie, you know, gives you to watch, is that each and every character has a different story. They do not have any connection in the beginning, but how they all are, you know, connected at one point in the end of the movie, it's amazing. I mean, they all are gathered at one point, and then, you know, the stories unfold. That is something amazing without any haphazard or loophole, because this is something very difficult to manage when there are too many stories that you have to show in one movie. How to, you know, connect them at one point, that is the biggest challenge, which we think that Anurag Basu has, you know, successfully met.
Exactly. I think the word for that is hyperlink, which became a very popular genre towards the mid of 2000s, especially when the movie Amorous Perros came, which was a huge global success. And that was a hyperlink film where there are 3 stories, and they really don't interlink in a sense that they don't really merge, but they keep there is a overlapping here and there. And every movie at that time used to be a hyperlink film. In fact, Anurag Basu himself has made a fantastic hyperlink film called Life in a Metro around that time in the mid 2000s. So he knows how to pull off a script of this nature. We were assuming this might well turn out to be Life in a Metro 2, but I think it's just turned out to be a much better movie, actually, given that it's that and so much more.
Right. Mayank, thank you very much for being with us. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Nosheen. Thank you for having me.
That was Mayank Shekhar reviewing Ludo. And that is it from today's episode. We hope you liked it. Don't forget to share your feedback on the social media link mentioned down below. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care and goodbye.